What is going on, Comic Fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined by my favorite set of brothers, the Berkowitz Brothers. Welcome back.
You're
Your
too
favorite?
kind.
You have
My favorite
what?
set. Listen, I don't like a lot of brothers. Okay, like it's I don't like my
I
own.
get
No, Jake. I like
I
true
mean,
family.
look at us. We both have aloe hats on and the same glasses.
same glasses. You guys are just you're twinning without even being twin.
And wait, Max, what are you drinking also right now?
They call your kids call it data
Are
juice.
you drinking blue juice? Yeah, we're all drinking blue juice.
I feel so left out. I have no glasses and I have no blue drink in my hand. Like
We're sending it to you after this. Okay.
so, well, I am excited to have you both back. You are co-creators of The Writer from Dark Horse Comics. Um, some other person is help writing. His name's Josh. But it's
Some nobody.
some up and coming writer, like So if you ever heard of Josh, guys, go check him out. Give him his credit. But
Man.
we're talking writer. I had you guys on right at the beginning when issue one came out. We kind of dug into the mythos a little bit, what you guys had planned for it, how you got into comics. And now issue four just dropped at the time that, we're airing this. And we kind of wanted to go a little full spoiler into the book on all things from issue 1 through 4 of the writer. So this is your warning. If you haven't picked up your books and picked up issue 4, because I know you're all picking up the writer like you should,
But
uh,
you better.
pause this video. We'll be here still later. That's how the internet works. And you can come read issue 4 and talk with us because you're going to want to. Trust me, you'll want to. If you're here now, you better have been up to date on reading. So before I hop into you, talking to both of you, first, what the freak? Issue 4. I thought I knew where y'all were going, and you didn't. So before we get into that, like, how did you have a plan for where you were taking this, like from the pitch of the book, or did this kind of come about later on?
It really helped that we were all doing heavy doses of ketamine on this. No, I'm just
Yes. Microdosing. No.
yeah. No, we did have a plan. In our heads, we are like, this is in to us. This was the only direction this could go, with someone named the writer. How could you not explore that specific power, and what that means? So yeah, that
I mean, I always love something like the butterfly effect.
Mhm.
And we were really nervous about this ending and how people would portray it or how they would like it, and we're happy you loved it. So
And
Did
we were honestly really inspired by of course we're huge fans of Grant Morrison. And it's funny. We started writing this and then we I feel bad saying this as like a comic book nerd, but I had never read the issue of Animal Man with the character, the writer that's in it. And so, we kind of read that after the fact, and we were like, "Oh, this is," we were kind of touching upon similar
Mhm.
themes with this.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I'm looking back because I have that. I have some
oh, it's
Animal
right
Grant
there.
Morrison right there.
Amazing, yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, I
So
mean, yeah, it's like what, all the pressure and like, what does it mean to be a writer, to put yourself out there? That was kind of, where we were going with this entire journey.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense because I noticed, as I was reading it when I was coming out, but I also then reread issues 1 through 4, today as a whole to kind of just prep myself to talk with you both. Uh, what I noticed this time reading that I didn't notice as much, the little red box, not red boxes, the little red writing in the boxes of the writer notes, kind of a lot of time in the story, you have Stan Siegel, who are, as our protagonist of the book, is getting critiqued a lot on his writing style. And I was like, man, this is getting kind of meta of like, they're like critiquing, right? I'm like, how much of this is like you kind of fleshing out your own demons of like dealing with
Mhm.
feedback of people going like, oh, really, you're a writer? And that's the line you came up with?
Exactly. That I'm like, I'm so happy like you caught that. And I think that's why it's going to, really come together for people in the trade paperback when you can like sit down and read it all the way through. Because you'll even notice that the style of writing and pacing kind of improves from the first issue. Because for us, we were like, all of us are new to this
Mhm.
space, this comic book writing space. So we wanted to be like, okay, we want to kind of like throw everything at people in the first issue. Like, as like a new writer, how would that feel?
And we
Uh,
knew people would say, "Oh, the pacing is so fast in the first
yeah.
issue." So it's
Mhm.
great to see people, okay, the pacing is changing throughout. It's exactly how we wanted it.
Yeah, and like those little like sort of red notes
Mhm.
that you were reading, like yeah, him critiquing himself. When we're writing, we're always putting down like our own like random thoughts that were coming to us, like random stories that we'd research. Like in issue 3, there's like a wonderful story that we found. I think it was like from the Washington Post about a little girl who had like an imaginary friend, and she was like 4 years old and ended up being like a Holocaust survivor or Holocaust victim
Mhm.
that she was somehow seeing or experiencing. So we wanted to kind of like put that in, because that was like something that really did come to us and sort of tie that to Izzy's own journey.
Well, even with the wetlands in Boston,
Yes.
researching that, I mean, it's true. There was wetlands above, I mean, right before they created Fenway Park.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I remember our first conversation. I feel like it was one of those like I'm like, oh, I kind of know where this is going, and like I'm like, I bet if I rewatch that interview, you guys would just be sitting back going,
Yep.
no, no, do you think you know?
And
So
like, and we didn't do that to like, totally troll people. It's just, that is honestly where the story felt right to us.
right. So
Yeah.
do you think was there fear, was there hesitation in, creating this and crafting it being a comic book, being that it's going to be released single issues? So like we said, I talked to you in July when
Mhm.
issue 1 came out, and we're here now in, end of October of this kind of what 4 month period then of where the story's going, where if someone is going to read the trade, they're going to read it in
Right.
a day easily. They
Yeah.
should or could. That you had hesitation of like, hang in there till issue 4 or hang in there till, like, did you have that fear as like crafting this in single issues of like people might not know where it's going or be upset that they don't get to read it all in one swoop?
Well, Ben wanted to answer every critic.
Yeah.
They would just
I was
wait.
honestly scared shitless from the beginning. I was just like, oh no, nobody's gonna get this, but I really think this is the only way we can do this. And
That's good we care that much that he really wanted to reach out to every person.
yeah, I mean, like I have like intense anxiety. And so I was like, oh, I gotta reach out to everyone on League of Comic Geeks and like, comic book roundup. Um, but yeah, so there definitely was like this intense
Yeah.
fear, but that was also something we wanted to inject in Stan and Liz and Izzy's journey, was this sort of like fear of putting yourself out there. So that was kind of it. We just like we had to put this out there in this like, one issue or, multi-issue format.
Right.
Uh, yeah.
And you had what I love is like y'all are the setup for it works. We're beating around the bush, and we'll get there eventually, gang. So just hold on. Like, the pacing of this interview is going the same. We're taking our time to do what we want to do to set up this interview. So if you want to come to get your questions answered here about issue 4, just wait. Uh, but like, did you have this, with context of like, Stan? You're dealing right off the bat with prejudice and things that he's dealing with in issue 1, right? Of the swastika, the Nazi graffiti on his building, and the dean who's kind of just like, oh, well, you get it. And there's those like, it's kind of like he's feeling very attacked for who he is. And then you have the layer on layer of, his daughter who's being, who is a black Jew in this society, like that's even another layer of, on that of what they, what they had to go through as characters and stuff. But what I liked is that you still had like it wasn't come doesn't come off as preachy because you have a character who's talking about because it's flaw he's a flawed character as well, right? Like he's not and so I think what it allows is like we can all have our own issues that we're struggling with, but you're still dealing with a lot of these prejudice and things that I think and tough topics that I think then tie back into where you go with an issue 4 very well.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, and no, that you kind of like nailed it. Like, we all have like our own, internal struggles going on. Whatever it could be, financial, it could be work, relationships. But then on top of that, to throw in like all of these, external influences like anti-Semitism,
Right.
Which
which,
is real stuff we've dealt with. I mean,
yeah.
at school, that I woke up to swastikas all over my school building.
And anti-Semitism is like, as we've all seen, is on the rise right now, unfortunately. And so we really kind of wanted to tap into, that experience that, we've had, and
Right.
hopefully that came across.
Well, and I
And a
know
lot
it.
of this, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go.
No, I was going to say a lot of this is part of our life experience. I mean, and with her mom, she's recovering from cancer too. So we wanted to put that in there, her journey going along with all of this too.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of stuff that people can relate to these things. Like there's a lot of people in life who've been affected by cancer, and I lost my dad to cancer a couple years ago. So like
No,
these are things that we all you might not struggle with this aspect of hate, or but there's these, maybe you deal with these issues, and so like it feels like a very personable story, very personal story. And I remember in our first time talking, you mentioned your mom, as kind of the framework for the mom in this book. Did she come around? Did she like the character a little bit more? Because she didn't like it at first, I heard. If I remember right, I was not happy with how you guys portraying her a little bit. So
she loves it now. She really does.
yeah. I think she's like also seen that like people have kind of like gravitated to the book and to this character. And the character also like, I think Ariel kind of like heard some of her critique of the way the character looked, and her look kind of improves along the journey as well. So yeah, no, I think she likes the character now.
which is good because I want to make sure Mom Berkowitz is happy. So
Gotta make it. Is
Gotta
she
make
ever
sure.
happy with us? Who knows? I don't know.
right. But that was an interesting choice too. You mentioned about like her character design changes a little bit, and and obviously, if you're reading the book, you realize that your co-creator Josh Gad, he is very much implemented into this book as the main character here. But even the design and look of him changes throughout the story as well. What was that kind of process or mindset for you of like allowing the storytelling to use the art in this format of comics to kind of shift to tell the story, because it's harder to do that in TV or movie of really shifting the dynamics and without it being like okay, that just looks fake.
Right. Exactly. And that's why I think this story works like so well as a comic book. But yeah, that actually like full transparency and honesty, that was Ariel's idea
Yeah.
to do that. He felt like, it would make it sort of more magical, and it kind of adds to sort of like the satirical nature that
Mm.
we were tapping into, of like, how every superhero is this, buff, handsome every day. I mean, Josh is a handsome, gorgeous man, but we wanted someone that was like more relatable, that like we could relate to,
Mhm.
on that level. And so as he progresses on this journey, he uses his powers, and he like changes so quickly and nobody even comments on it. We thought was like a nice like inside baseball joke. And like I hope that like came across. I'm glad it did.
Yeah. Well, you have a moment, you have a couple moment, or at least one moment in issue 1 where the stepdad kind of is like, "Oh, you
Yeah.
lost you lost
Yes.
weight, Stan." You're like,
Yes.
"Okay." But that is about as much as I feel like y'all touch on it, and you're just kind of like, let's just see what they do.
Mhm.
Like,
Right, exactly. And then like of course at the end of issue 4, he's back to him and I like that those last pages like I'm sure the it will be polarizing for a lot of people, but like the style approach that Ariel took and just like kind of seeing like the original Stan was emotional.
yeah.
And even the way he designed Fenway, oh, like
Yeah.
we could say Fenway.
Yeah. We can say
I,
yeah.
he
Yeah, it's
designed Fenway
Fenway.
Park.
Yeah.
He's not used to baseball,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it came out perfect.
Yeah.
It was it was good to see, and tying in stuff of like the Green Monster with, with Laura's with the story and things like that. So give us a little insight into, the writer's room between the three of you when you're looking at crafting some of this, because I feel like there has to be moments you're like, one of you is like, let's add this in, and the other's like, I don't know, like, I mean, like, or like, how does the process of creating this book work? Because obviously, you said from the get go, you know where it's going, but I
Right.
feel like it still is a process of, okay, is it you doing it on Zoom, or is it some take kind of parts and you guys send it to each other? What's that process look like a little bit?
Yeah, it was kind of like a hybrid, a little bit of everything. Like it really, for us, it was like what was the most important was the outline stage.
Okay.
Max and I had these like sort of like big grand concepts that we wanted, and there were like a million of them that we wanted to tap into in this entire series. But Josh, he really like he helped me, his brilliant brain, he was able to like kind of like bring it back, condense it, and yeah, help us like hone in on like the specifics of like the human story of it all, the characters, and yeah, I mean there was like so much I wanted to do with like the Sword of Moses and that we hopefully could still explore.
Later. Yeah.
But yeah, it was like very much collaborative in the sense that like, we worked on the outline, like we would write, send it to Josh, he would give it back, and then with his notes and feedback, we would do Zooms. And then in the writing stage, it was, very much a similar process. Yeah.
I gotta ask.
Uh,
Um, I mean, I think it was issue 2 or issue 3. Stan, he's fighting some characters. There's lava.
Hmm.
Then he has a
is
little
that the,
protection, and they're like, "Oh, how'd you survive that?" He's like, "The cold never bothered me anyways." Who? Which one's like, "A, let's do it," and was everyone on board?
I honestly, I mean, Max and I kind of slid that one in there. I mean, you had to. He was using
yeah.
like the same powers, as that little indie film that a few kids have seen.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, come on, we had to do something. It was funny at first in issue 1 when Stan like teleports and brings back like a green monster stuffed animal. Originally, we were gonna have it be an Olaf,
I think that
but
was a no-no, right?
but the powers that be like put the kibosh on that. So, but we had to get this line in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that makes me so happy that you got that. Oh, love it.
Well, there's little moments, because you're tackling serious issues, and
Mhm.
and that a lot of people struggle with. They struggle with dealing with, with racism, with hate, with anti-Semitism. Like, and so like these are heavy topics, but there's enough levity in it that like as a reader you can like you have those moments of like where they're critiquing the writers, like, really, you're a writer, that's what you come up with. Like, there was another, I'm trying to blank what. Oh, that's spoilers. So like, mom's dying in Fenway Park, and then the writer notes are like, oh, it's a better way to die than a tornado. Am I right? Like, I'm like, again, like there's moments like that where if you can easily gloss over that as a reader, but like if you're deep, not you don't have to be deep in the comic book lore, but it's just like, okay, that was good.
I mean, I think you're the
Oh,
perfect person because we want people to go back and read it all after
right.
this.
And I think you also bring up something that like, you know, uh, I feel like a lot of people may struggle with. It's the tone that
Mhm.
kind of like balances between like, comedy, horror, fantasy, adventure. But, for
That's
us,
our life.
yeah, that's life. I
Yeah.
mean, minus some of the, real magic, but life is sort of like that balance of like horror, sadness, comedy, and like, it's a very Jewish thing to deal with trauma through humor. And so, that was very important to all of us in those moments, and to not take away from like those traumatic, moments, but that is, something, especially how Max and I think Josh, how we deal with a lot of, you know, a lot of the, the troubling, traumatic stuff we deal with.
Yeah. So we've kind of beat around the bush a little bit. Let's talk issue 4. People at this point, there's been plenty of time. If you have not read issue 4, to pause the video. You're in it now. So here we go. So you make this, you're having the big climactic final, battle at Fenway Park. You've got everything in under the sun, right? You got the daughter who's been kind of having this character speaking to her, which she made as a comic, kind of like, in an earlier issue. And then she transforms into this like Nubia type character. And then you just an all out battle, and then it basically just stops.
Mhm.
Like, tell us like what the process was, and like the where you why you wanted to take the route that you took telling this story.
Right. And yeah, no, I know, and I love that it just cuts off. It was like this big like Battle of Mordor, and then it's just like, what if it just like all suddenly stopped, and like, and there's some like hilarious moments, like when the dad comes back with his, his secret group, and they just get like wiped out immediately.
His
Um,
knockoff X-Men.
Right, his knockoff X-Men. Like we thought that was hilarious. And like, yeah, you see all of these like big battle moments in movies and TV shows. And so we kind of wanted to flip the script a bit, but also like finally tap into Stan becoming the writer.
An
Uh,
experienced writer.
yeah, an experienced writer, and us, like it was like kind of a moment for us to show our evolution of, of writing this story. But yeah, when he uses that, it's kind of like, whoa, let's put a pause on this battle. And it's funny, I don't know if you caught this, but like with the beasts of the apocalypse, you barely even see them.
Right.
Like they're just like a big, like massive, like body horror, like mess. Which I also wanted to play into, and like, we wanted to play into, because like, in all these things, these you see like, Godzilla, Kong, these big kaiju battles. We also wanted to try and play with that a little bit, flip the script on that. So yeah. Um,
Where was it in the moment of crafting this story that you knew you kind of wanted to have this writer writing this story, and then kind of like have this dialogue of writing of like, why am I doing this? What am I like? Did you like, was this kind of the basis of the story that you thought of first and you expanded off of that? Or when you kind of had this idea of a writer with being able to use these superpowers, you're like, well, where would this go? Where did the ending come? Was it right off the bat from the get-go for y'all? Or was it kind of like as you're crafting out this idea to start with, you're like, okay, here's where we're going. Obviously, you knew it going to the pitch, it seemed like, but in the initial creation of it.
yeah.
Well,
What
no,
were
I
you?
was going to say all the stuff Ben and I love to write about is people struggling.
Mhm.
So it definitely was something we thought about right away
Yeah, and
and
it's like,
struggling throughout.
yeah, and like how do we best showcase again, like with writers, or like at least with all of us, it's like a constant internal struggle. Like we're always like in our head constantly, thinking of things like, oh, we could have done this better, we could have added in this plot beat.
Even this interview, I'm constantly in
Yeah.
my head.
And it's like, when he like first,
I'm loving it though.
yeah, when he ends the battle and he like brings himself back together, and he's in this sort of, white space.
Mhm.
Um, you know, the first thought, of course, is like, you know what? First, fuck Nazis. And that's also like a thought I have like daily, like when
You
I
know,
wake
people
up in the
say
morning.
men talk about the Roman Empire all the time. We
Right,
think
right.
about Nazis all the time.
Yeah, yeah, it's always there. Um, but yeah, I guess, we had kind of had like, little breadcrumbs of this idea of the ending. And like it was kind of baked into the outline, but then as soon as we got into issue one, like really scripting it, it was like this moment when like this possessed guy breaks into the diner and uh I forget what the creature says, but then Stan says like, what the fuck is that? I was like, oh, we really need to like push, like go all out in exploring like him using the power of the writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I love is too is like you get these moments, you get the panels, you kind of get the, there's I'm looking off screen because I'm looking at it on my computer, and you get like, Stan moving away at kind of a panel and then looking at the comic layout of what I love is you're getting to see him kind of evaluate his story and kind of go like, am I leaning too heavily into tropes here? Am I leaning too much into this? And like it almost feels like this was a cathartic process for y'all as the writers of like, are we doing too much of this? Are we doing like, how do we process the negativity? How do we process criticism? How do we process, like people like, oh, this is, it's too tied into Jewish lore, but like, well, that's what we're writing about. You can't take that, like, because I know that was something we talked about the last time of like,
Hmm.
you can't make this movie and like, okay, we're gonna take away this one part of this Jewish
Right.
because like, like you can't, like, you have to tell that the story. So like it seemed like this was a process for you both, and I'm sure with Josh of like just kind of fleshing out what it means to be a writer and a creator even.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And like you ask, any filmmaker, a lot of, writers, and at least for us, anything like that we've sort of created, produced, after the fact, we're always revisiting it and being
Mhm.
like, how could we have done this better? Like, how could we recut this? How could we, rewrite this? This is how I would have rewritten this.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's like an unending process. And that's like also what we wanted to kind of like leave readers with, that, as a writer, like these stories like just never end for you. They can always be picked up like not only by the reader, but like for us, like I'm constantly going back and forth like through the story. So yeah, it was like very much cathartic.
Yeah.
And when we were at Comic-Con at one of our panels, we didn't know that we'd have so many questions about bowel movements and him eating the paper.
That is something I wish we had written more about.
You got a lot of questions about what would happen if you ate that much
Oh my
paper.
God, so many.
I think the
I'm sad that this is
90%.
the first time it's coming up in this. I've talked to you now twice, and I haven't even thought about
I know. And like
like
it's
I might as
and
well
what
just quit my job.
and what's even more embarrassing is that talking about bowel movements is like the Jewish experience.
Yeah,
So
it's perfect. Yeah.
like, that was a big miss.
Yeah, we got to rewrite this. Well, we got
I
to
know.
do a second arc now because
Right. I asked our editor, I was like, can we adjust the ending a little? She was like, no, it comes out
Special
in two
parchment,
weeks.
Ben.
What?
It's special parchment. You know, it doesn't hurt his
Yeah,
tummy.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
fine.
exactly.
so because when you guys we talked, it was right before San Diego, so you had some panel. Were you able to get some good reception right off the bat from people there of like issue one? Because I feel like this is a weird process, comics sometimes. Like it's a medium I love. You obviously do, like you're writing, but like very rarely do you get like do you go to a movie and you're like, okay, I'll watch the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of it. Like, I don't know if I like this. I'm gonna stop. Like, no, you're like, I'm committed for the hour and a half. 9 times out of 10, like you're going to the movie, you're not walking out. Where comics, like, I don't know how many times I've started a series like issue one, issue two, and I'm like, I don't know about this. So I'm like, I'm
Right.
done. Like, and you just almost discredit the whole process of storytelling. But like, so did like how do I asked you about the reception, like, because I'm sure that plays into it a little bit too, of like, hang out, wait till the end, see where this goes to. So like, how was the reception for issue one, and then how do you kind of process the reception moving forward these last couple months?
Well, I think the first two issues came out, right?
Yeah, the
when
second issue had literally just come out the
Okay.
first day of Comic-Con,
yeah.
or San Diego Comic-Con. But yeah, I mean, that was the most insane panel. I mean, it was one of the bigger rooms at San Diego Comic-Con, which we were
We were
uh,
really nervous about. We thought
yeah, that
it'd
like
be,
five people would show
yeah.
up. But it was literally like filled. They had to turn people away. And I know, like, it was interesting. I was like, oh, the majority of people are here, of course, because of Josh. And, but it was shocking that, like, I think half the room had actually like read the first issue and had some like really in-depth, amazing questions to ask separate from pooping.
Those are
But
still great questions.
and then what was even more amazing was that Oscar-winning writer,
Correct.
producer Akiva Goldsman showed up and asked a question. And that was like, what is happening? Where are we right now? And like people were laughing at my jokes, which never happens.
And then
Where I
Ariel is so funny because he did not want a translator on the panel, and he's not great with English. So he kept asking me, "What did they say? What did he say?" And I should have translated in Spanish because I should know Spanish. I've been dating someone for 10 years who's Puerto Rican. And I was translating back to him in English. And then Josh was
just
like,
saying it
"That
louder.
doesn't help."
That was amazing. But yeah, it was like it was a very surreal experience to be in that room, to see our faces on the screen behind us, to have like the placards with our name, and to have like people actually like cheering for this series to be a success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to respect both your times. Is there anything about this book, this series so far that we haven't got to touch on that you're like, "Ooh, you missed this," or like, I really want to hit on this real quick?
There's a page at the end where you might see something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it like kind of goes back. Like I would just say like, really pay attention to the room, his office, the script that he's working on. And yeah, there's a certain couple tentacles like inching onto the screen, or the page. So yeah, I mean, who knows where this will go? But like one thing I will also say is like get the trade paperback, because
Yes.
there's some like we worked really hard, with Megan, our editor at Dark Horse, to bring this together and make it a very special collector's item. There's like some, great sort of explanation pages, a nice little cameo introduction blurb, and some amazing artwork um, that you'll see. And yeah, we can't say just yet, but there is a variant of the trade paperback that made me weep when it came together. Like
Very special person
a
from Dark
very
Horse.
special person to us, and I think to a lot of people. And it was someone who was very much an inspiration for how we kind of approached, writing the story and like folklore.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I've got some thoughts. I got some thoughts. And so, um, first off, I need to figure out how to get a pull quote on that trade of the writer is fantastic. Just wish there were more
Yes.
bowel movement jokes. And
That would be amazing. We're doing it. I'll connect you with Megan.
perfect. I don't. I just want that to be it. Nothing else. So, well, what do
Now
you?
I want to rewrite our afterword. Just make it one giant poop
We have
joke.
time, Ben.
Ah, maybe.
And
Um,
gang, you can get the very, very exclusive variant cover of this, where they also you can tear off the cover and eat it, and it will not
right.
make you have a bowel movement.
Yes.
We actually filmed some stuff with Josh recently, which is on its way coming out. We made him eat a lot of edible paper. Yeah, yeah. I don't think he was too happy. It is not the most enjoyable experience.
Oh, well, the things you do for your craft. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, there you
Deal
go.
with it. So paper never bothered him anyways. It's all good. So
I mean, look, Greg, like you're now part of the as we say the mishpucha, your family. So no, thank you so much for being with us
Thank
on
you.
this journey.
yes,
Um,
I've enjoyed it. I love that we've gotten to continue these conversations. I love that we got to do a deep dive into this because I feel like this book deserved that type of conversation. Again, I will still look for my invite to the award show party. So
you're
so
there.
I can't wait for that.
Stop it.
But the viewing parties. I don't expect to be when you guys get awards. I just want to go to your mom's viewing party
Look,
that y'all
you're gonna
have.
be there instead of our mom, but she won't be happy with us.
Terrible.
So, well, gang, go pick up if you haven't read The Writer and you've still listened to this or watched this whole video. Kudos to you. You should probably go pick it up though now because it's really good. And it's a lot of fun. Excited for when the trade comes out. What else do you both have anything that else that you kind of irons in the fire that you want to mention, or is it just like right now it's all focused on the writer?
I know. I mean, like a lot of this is focused on the writer, but this has been such an addicting process that yeah, we have some really fun comics that are cooking.
Okay.
Yeah, that we're
With
really
more
excited.
brothers.
Yeah, more brothers.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah.
So someone might beat you out for my favorite set of brothers on the show.
No, they won't. They can't.
Okay, good. No one can. No.
A lot of brother on brother on brother action. No, I'm just kidding.
Listen, what are you gonna do? So, well, where can people follow along with both of you? So to get up to date when when trade news comes out, when anything of these new comics things stuff that you're working on, where can people follow along with you?
Yeah, I would say follow on Instagram, the writer comic, or Max and I. We have our own individual Burke sketches, or
Yep.
Maximus Berkowitz, or even Berkowitz Bros on Instagram. And then yeah, on TikTok as well. There's the writer comic. Yeah, and there's some really fun stuff going on over there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Max, Ben, thank you both just for taking some time to talk about your comic with me. It's always fun having you two on the show and chatting about comics.
Greg, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Absolutely. With that being said, gang, go buy the book, go buy the trade when it comes out. And if you have some time to curl up, grab a book and nerd out.
Right.
Peace.